Alright, what's going on, guys? Elden Ring DLC did a lot to expand on its world and show us a side of the game's lore that we hadn't seen before, a side that many of us weren't expecting, and a direction of the story that subverted expectations. Now, while the DLC did answer many of the lore questions we had, there were a lot of parts of it that no one could have predicted, for better or for worse. But today I actually want to talk about one part of the DLC that many of us knew without a doubt would show up, and that I feel unfortunately missed the mark a bit. That of course being the legendary figure in the lore, Saint Trina. So today I want to talk about how I think the DLC didn't live up to the expectations of what we had for Saint Trina as built upon by the base game. Now of course in context of the lore provided, in the story of the DLC it is of course explained, but was that the right choice? Well, let's analyze that and see. But as we begin today, if you enjoy all things Souls-like and Elden Ring, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and now let's get into it. The best way to begin a video like this is to go back in time, back before the DLC released, and take a look at what people's expectations were from the lore of the base game. Following through the trail of breadcrumbs, and what little there are, there was a very definitive picture painted about who Saint Trina was. We had things like the Trina's Lilies, which gave us an idea that Saint Trina was some sort of enigmatic deity of sleep. There was also the Sword of Saint Trina, which further reinforced this idea and expanded upon the air of mysticism around her. And we could even see a figure of Saint Trina on the hilt of this sword, and descriptions like the Saint Trina's arrows give an idea that there are priests of Saint Trina who spread her teachings of sleep. But perhaps the most evocative of all the descriptions about Saint Trina comes of course from the Saint Trina's torch, where we have a description as well as a depiction of Saint Trina, showing Saint Trina as this sort of one-eyed monster with weird tentacles of hair, and the description further enforces that that depiction is in fact unnerving, and goes on to specify that it's meant to depict Saint Trina in adult form. Beyond that, through various context clues and some cut content, we did know for a fact that Saint Trina was a sort of alter ego of Miquella. So we were left until the DLC with a lot of questions. Questions such as, where is Saint Trina? Where are these so-called disciples and priests of Saint Trina? And perhaps the question that gripped the community the most, why does the torch depict Saint Trina in that way? Naturally, it led to a lot of speculation. Speculation that this Saint Trina was a manipulative monster, hiding behind the guise of a young girl or young boy, spreading their gospel of a never-ending sleep. Now, is that predictable? Yes, but it would be the typical thing FromSoftware would do, and a lot of people were excited for a potential Saint Trina boss fight. But what did the DLC actually give us? Saint Trina's involvement in the DLC begins with Thollier's Quest, as we find him in a state currently charmed by Miquella's power, and as time goes on we see him slowly fall into a sort of depression, unsure of himself, and also unsure of his objective. But if we look at what's hanging around his neck, we can see that he is actually a disciple of Saint Trina, and this becomes abundantly clear after the charm is broken, and we learn that his objective was to seek her out. He then leads us down the Cerulean coast, and into the fissure where we see all the signs of Saint Trina start to appear. Animals sleeping along the ground, a misty purple of sleep lingering in the air, and Trina's lilies sprouting everywhere. We then take the plunge into the deepest part of the fissure, to the cavern of the dead and discarded, the Garden of Deep Violet, where we finally find Saint Trina. And this is where we need to start to understand the story the DLC is trying to communicate. Because before you can get to Saint Trina herself, you have to go through the Putrescent Knight. And I'm not gonna lie, it took me a while to figure out exactly what the Putrescent Knight even was. It's a horseback rider wielding a cleaver made out of bones and goo, somehow brought to life by Saint Trina's magic. But the role the Putrescent Knight actually plays is a guardian for Saint Trina, and only one who can defeat it is worthy of receiving her audience. And that makes a lot of sense after we consider what Saint Trina's goal is, because when the player imbibes her nectar and we hear her voice, her ultimate plea is for us to kill Miquella. But let's talk for a second how the game chose to depict Saint Trina. Because what we see is Saint Trina as a sort of wilted flower. And I actually like that they chose to go this direction because it does make sense. The Saint Trina as we're seeing her here is after she's been discarded from herself, discarded from Miquella, and what little is left of her being has grown into this flower. But the center point of this quest isn't actually Saint Trina. This is ultimately Thollier's quest. And that's where I find a bit of disappointment. So let's go over what the quest actually rewards the player. Progressing this quest all the way through allows you to summon Thollier in the fight against Leda and her allies. And while he does put up a good fight, even if you don't progress the quest all the way through, you will still have an alternate summon that takes that place. And the same is true for the Radahn fight. Completing Thollier's quest creates a summon for him, and after you complete the DLC, you will find his corpse along with his gear. But this is where St. Trina's quest ends as well, which makes sense because St. Trina is technically Miquella as well. So if Miquella dies, St. Trina does too. So the player can return here after killing Miquella to find St. Trina's corpse and a lootable item of a purple flower headdress. Now I actually enjoyed this quest, but there are some problems here. The issue with this is that the parts actually revolving around St. Trina, of which there are very little, and the actual St. Trina related item that you get are technically not part of the quest, as you don't have to actually do Thollier's quest to get it. St. Trina will die no matter what if Miquella is killed, and you can still retrieve the item. Essentially, if you're not interested in Thollier's gear, then there's not much St. Trina related for you to enjoy. And the flower has a cool effect, but at the end of the day, it's just a flower you wear on your head. There's nothing specifically indicative of St. Trina to gain here. The DLC did add the Velvet Sword of St. Trina, but it is also not part of the quest, and an issue altogether specific to this sword is that we already had a straight sword of St. Trina. When it comes down to it, it's basically the same thing. I was really excited to get some new weapon type that does sleep buildup, like a sleep greatsword or something along those lines to get creative with it, but we just get another of the thing we already had. Beyond that, if you're someone that doesn't pay attention to the lore, there's nothing about the Putrescent Knight that communicates St. Trina. This would have been a perfect opportunity to create a boss that does sleep ailment and give an interesting twist that we haven't seen in the game yet, but instead it does blue frost fire, and its cleaver does magic damage, which is seemingly unexplainable unless you buy into the theory that it's a copy of Radahn. But judging by its file name as Knight of the Glowmide Queen, chances are this boss was not designed with St. Trina in mind at all. Now when it comes to the Fissure, I think this area does do a good job at communicating the theme of St. Trina, especially with the purple mist and the overall gloomy atmosphere. But there's no new enemies here, and it's entirely linear, with almost no reason to return after beating it one time. And outside of this Fissure, we have almost no reference to St. Trina at all. Miquella does not acknowledge this questline at all. Aside from being able to summon Thollier, St. Trina doesn't give you anything to aid in the fight, and the conclusion to her story is the same whether you did the quest or not. There's no callback to that St. Trina's torch depiction that shows the adult St. Trina. We'll never know why that was created, or what adult St. Trina looks like. I can't be the only one that was expecting to have this adult St. Trina monster boss fight after completing the quest, or some kind of big twist when returning there after Miquella's dead. Since Miquella cast St. Trina away, I was expecting there to be a little more, or some kind of reason that she could stay alive, perhaps corrupted, even though Miquella is gone. The base game presented this idea of worlds and dreams, where things that happen in the dream affect the person outside, and it just feels weird to me for this concept never to come back, especially in the quest line of the character most closely associated to dreams themselves. Now, whether that's headcanon or not, I know a lot of you will remember that the most popular theory for what the DLC was going to be was St. Trina's dream world. That was why the Hand of Miquella was always theorized to be the entry point. Now we compare this boss fight with Fortisax to the dream we get in the DLC, and all it is a black screen with some words that are said. We do hear the voice of St. Trina, which is cool, but that's all. I can't be the only one that felt a little bit let down by this questline. For such a legendary figure in the lore, it's a bit underwhelming that the quest that centers around that character is virtually pointless in the context of it all. We had planned to kill Miquella already, so there's no new perspective to be gained on it, and after it's all said and done, nothing changes, whether you did the quest or not, aside of course from the focus on Thollier. While I was doing this quest in the DLC, I thought this was going to be a choice at the end, where we could either side with Leda and Miquella, or because of the perspective gained from St. Trina, choose to go against them. So I was really disappointed to learn that wasn't the case, and St. Trina's involvement makes no difference to how things play out. FromSoftware had a golden opportunity here, to give the player that choice of who to follow, and I can't help but feel that St. Trina deserved more. But what do you guys think? Personally, I think the Putrescent Knight throws things off a bit. They could have done a boss that communicates the idea of St. Trina much more clearly, and I think there absolutely should have been some kind of impact on the ending of the DLC because of it. But what did you guys think? Did you like the St. Trina questline the way it is? Do you think it deserved more? And if so, what are your suggestions? Either way though, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like on it and subscribe if you enjoy all things Elden Ring. But with all that, I will catch you in the next one.